Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. So today we're doing a workshop on brushstroke economy. If you've ever wanted to loosen up your brush work, paint more spontaneously, how do I say that? Paint with more expression, this is the class for you. So over the next 2 hours, you can learn and paint along with me. So grab some large brushes and yeah, let's get started. You'll need paints. You can work in any opaque medium. I'll tell you a little bit about all the materials you'll need in a second. And let's jump into the schedule. Let's do this. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to tell you what we need to set up, materials and everything. And then we're going to jump straight into an incredible interview with the master of expressive brushwork, David Shevlino. So really excited to share that with you, really excited to share his work with you. You're going to love it. And once we're totally inspired and raring to go after that, we're going to jump straight into an exercise where we're going to paint an egg in 30 brush strokes. And then we're going to paint it again in 15 and then again in 5. Okay, and it's going to be a real nice exercise to limit the amount of brush strokes we're using, and yeah, really start thinking in that limited economic way. All important tea break. Stay hydrated. It's nice and hot here in the UK. Make sure you got some water or something to stay hydrated. Then when we come back, we're going to jump into a timed painting. So a 30-minute timed painting using all of that knowledge from the interview and the practice session as well. So then we're going to look at this week's challenge. Then we're going to review the challenges from last week. Amazing stuff. And look at this week's challenge, which I'm really excited about. And a little bit of a channel update too. So stick around till the end, and we've got some exciting things coming for the channel. So you don't want to miss that. Then, of course, view a gallery. So you can, where am I? You can share what you create today with the community, the Jake's Art Club community. Just hashtag Jake's Art Club and share your work on Instagram, and we'll make sure to see your work at the end of this video. So as you're painting along, make sure to post your work and we'll be able to see it. Okay, so materials and setup. Right, what you'll need. I've got acrylic paints. Okay, I've got a set of dual primaries. Okay, so a warm and a cool red, warm and a cool blue, and warm and a cool yellow. For the egg painting, we're going to be using just black and white. Okay, so you'll just need black and white, or white and sort of like a burnt umber. Just white and one color will do. And you can use any paint you like. Okay, so maybe not. You could give it a go with watercolor, but more opaque mediums will be better. I know David uses oil paints, and but this time I'm going to use acrylic paints just to show that you can do it. You can do these exercises in all sorts of materials. So get your paints out. You're going to need some big brushes. So yeah, ditch them small brushes and grab something like this. Okay, I've got a 1.5 inch brush here, and this is a 1 inch, and I've also got a 3/4 inch brush. Okay, so nice big brushes. What else are we going to need? Paper. Yeah, paper for your studies. So because we're just doing like a study of the egg, I've got some acrylic paper that I'm going to be using it on. You could use any paper just because it's a quick study. I don't want you to use up a canvas on that first exercise. And then after that, we're going to need, for the timed piece, we're going to need a little canvas, a little board, and we're going to tone that canvas as well. So mine's white now, and I'm going to paint it with some orange. Okay, you'll see this after the interview, covered all in orange, and I'll let that dry for the second half so we can paint on a nice toned ground. So if you've got a canvas or something lying about, or maybe just another piece of paper, now's a good time to get that toned. And yeah, let's do this. So we're going to hear from David now. The interview is about 20 minutes long, so plenty of time to get your materials ready and tone that canvas. And yeah, if you need to grab anything else, but I hope you enjoy the interview, and I'll see you in a minute. My guest today is painter and instructor David Shevlino. A master in the application of loose and economic brushwork, David paints with bold spontaneity and movement and captures the very essence of his subjects. This simplification looks effortless, but it comes from many years of practice and a strong understanding of fundamentals and anatomy. His work often playfully crosses the line between representation and abstraction. You're first greeted with luscious, painterly textures. Then your mind puts these simple forms together and a figure or a still life appears with clarity. When I look at David's work, I can't help but want to run and grab a paintbrush. And I'm so excited to share his work with all of you. So David, thank you and welcome to the stream. And it's really great to meet you. No, it's great.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Where are you joining us from today?
I am in my studio in North Carolina in the US. There's a little peek at what the studio looks like.
Awesome. I'm curious how this more painterly style developed. Was there a particular breakthrough moment that you can remember?
I'll start from the beginning, or I tell you a little bit about my background. I had a very traditional classical training. I went to art school when I was about 17 years old. And when I entered art school, I was already doing a lot of drawing, was very interested in the old masters. So by the time I got to the Pennsylvania Academy, which is in Philadelphia, I already had a fairly good idea of what I wanted to do, which was study traditional classical drawing. So I spent a lot of time drawing, worked a lot from casts. Yeah, very, very solid foundation. And I would say I was out of school about 10 to 12 years, and I had this sort of a nagging feeling that I wanted to explore something else, that I had gotten to a point where I could do certain things and I was proficient at certain things, but I wanted to take it to another place. I wasn't sure of what form that would take. I didn't know what that would look like. It was as I eventually took the plunge and started to do some experimenting, and that got the ball rolling. Well, skip a few decades and here I am now.
Did you just want to break out from kind of what you were being taught and that kind of thing? You wanted to have a bit more expression?
By the time I was thinking this or feeling this way, I felt as though I was only scratching the surface and that there was something, I wanted to do something more personal. And as I said, I didn't know what form that would take. I can remember just getting some very large panels and some large brushes. I just started experimenting, and at first I made just a huge mess, and I was very insecure about what I was doing because I was going outside of my comfort zone, which was very new to me. I ruined a lot of canvases. I just made a mess of things, but I kept going, and the more I did it, the more I embraced the idea of experimenting, seeing what could come out of taking some risks and pushing myself into uncomfortable places.
Your brushwork, it's beautiful. Can you tell us what types of brushes you use and how you go about choosing a brush for any given area?
With those experimental paintings that I was talking about, since I was working fairly large, it required me to start using large brushes. It was then that I started to use a brush that was, maybe this wide. And that has carried over into the work that I'm doing now.
Yeah, no, I can't stand it when it's like this. It needs to be.
Well, it's a very different way of painting. It's a very different way of applying paint. I think I've gotten to the point now where I don't really feel, I do use small brushes occasionally for certain things.
Sure.
But a lot of the students, when I'm teaching, often they'll say, I would have never thought that you would use a brush that size for this particular passage or something. but then I, like I said, I've gotten accustomed to it, and I can use the corner of a brush sometimes if I want a small area. I think I just get a little bit nervous if I'm using a small brush. I'm afraid that it's going to just kind of suck me in, and then I start to noodle around too much. So
You start so broad and so almost two tones on a figure or something like that, and
right.
values, sorry, and I love that really stepped back approach. The way you make marks is very deliberate and you can be quite strong and have like a spring as you're applying your paint
Uh-huh.
strokes. Do you think about that? Do you think about the speed of that or the application when painting?
I don't know that I consciously think of it. I think that's become part of my working method. Again, going back to the way I was trained, that all goes back to having a good foundation in drawing and just the sheer practice and experience of having, painted for years and years. I mean, eventually you become more confident about what you're doing and where a stroke of paint or a little dab of paint goes on a good day, that is.
Your edges, soft edges seem to play an important part in your paintings, and
Right.
you can capture so much with so few brushstrokes. Is that also, subconscious, or are you thinking, that's how I'm making a soft edge here?
Well, I think that's probably a little bit more conscious.
Yeah.
Economizing and getting more bang for every brush stroke. I think it goes hand in hand with with the evolution of my work. I think if you're going to be more looser and quasi abstract, then it's essential to be able to really understand what you're looking at and be able to break it down, to simplify it, to economize. And so the two things they go together. But I think I am very conscious about when I'm painting about what edge do I want.
You kind of really understanding the form, simplifying core shadow, reflected light, and it maybe even accentuating the real basics there with them large brushes. And
See, again, having a traditional training and really understanding drawing and form and how you create form, or the illusion of three dimensions and volume, is really very important. Well, in any kind of painting, but especially so if you're going to be exaggerating and inventing.
and even more so here perhaps because you've got less room to go back and tinker. You have to be sure.
Right, because again, you're breaking things down and simplifying them. So that means you're filtering out that's what's going through my mind. What has to be there? What doesn't have to be there? And really understanding form and how you put that together is essential. In other words, in order to deconstruct, you have to be able to first construct something, and then you can understand how you take it apart.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so having, again, and with the figure, of course, having some knowledge of anatomy is very helpful. So that too is something that comes into play. But I can take the same ideas or concept which I apply to working from a figure to nearly any form. It could be an apple, a still life, or a tree trunk, or something like that. But the same concepts.
The anatomy of any form that you can. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
One of your most recent paintings, or still a work in progress, I'm not sure, is the sumo wrestlers. We got to see a little preview of it on your social, on Instagram.
Oh, right, that one, right.
But what are you looking for there? Is it an energy in all of your paintings? Is it an energy? Is it a dynamism? And how do you know when you're finished with one of these paintings?
Well, in that case, in the case of the sumo wrestlers, yes, specifically, that particular subject is about a sense of movement and energy, and I think that subject or those figures, the way they're sort of interlocked and, these two massive, the way I look at it is like these two massive forces trying to overcome one another, which is, well, we won't go into the metaphors of, what all that means, but it's an attractive subject to me in a narrative, as far as a narrative. But visually, it also, I think it lends itself very well to a spontaneous paint application and creating a sense of movement and great energy and abstracting those forms as well. Like the one you were referring to, the one I think I have it posted on my Instagram account. That's gotten fairly somewhat abstract in places, and then it's a little bit more, descriptive or conventionally descriptive in other places.
Do you find that you look for abstraction, interesting marks on a smaller scale as well? Like, almost as if you could cut your painting up into small chunks, and each chunk is actually quite interesting by itself without the subject. Do you look for that abstraction?
Yeah, I think I do. I think I do. I mean, there is the whole, the entirety of the painting. But of course, then sometimes I can have a lot of fun with this little section over here. I like that passage over there. I guess the challenge is to get, the whole thing working, trying to put together some elaborate composition like a symphony or something like that. You can have all of these different sections, but overall, the whole thing needs to all flow together and hopefully make sense, as one.
So, David, as you know, you're an inspiration to me and to many others. I'm curious.
Well, that's nice to hear.
where do you get your own inspiration from? Where does that?
Oh, that's the $1 million question. Well, I go through ups and downs, and sometimes I can be inspired by certain subjects or certain things that I see. And of course, there are periods where I'm kind of scratching my head and wondering, what am I going to do today to keep myself from getting bored? But I mean, I try to have several things going at the same time so that I don't have all of my eggs in one basket. I've learned that it's better for me personally, given my personality, to have several things going at one time. And a part of that, I think, is just experimenting. I often will experiment with things, not all of the time. Sometimes I'm just doing something a little bit more straightforward, more conventional. But then other times I'm trying to do something more ambitious and push myself and to experiment with something and to see something start to unfold in front of me, which is actually can be very nerve-wracking. I find that kind of painting really takes a lot of energy.
Are there any rituals or routines that you go through when you start a painting?
I guess the closest thing to a routine or a ritual would be the fact that I like to paint over some existing paint. And so that usually means either painting over old paintings or painting over something that has some ground color or something going on. I have not painted on a blank white canvas in a very long time, and I not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that I find it more psychologically inviting and less daunting if I can see some underpainting or something already on a surface. And I love painting into old paintings because I can take away paint and expose. Because even though I have an idea in my head about where the painting will go or what I want to happen and basically how I can achieve that, it's not I wouldn't say that's carved in stone. There's still this element of
Almost, is it almost the painting speaking back to you, like in a kind of feedback where that goal, you're not going to just plow through and make that goal come true,
yes,
but you're oh, that's nice there,
right. I'm looking for those things, and I want to see that. So it's not just, well, I'm going from step A to step B, then to step C.
Hmm.
It's not quite it's not quite as linear and logical approach with me, which is another big difference in the way that I work now, and as opposed to the way I was working many years ago. And sometimes I do still paint that way. I did a painting last month of a skull in the studio, and I was very methodical about the way I built it up. And I realized that in some ways it's kind of soothing for me to paint that way, because it's a lot more, it's much more of a straight line. Like I know, okay, I'm going to start here, then I'm going to go to this, and then the next step, and I know where this is going to end up. But
Having a process could be comforting, but perhaps limiting.
right,
Yeah.
I can't paint that way most of the time, but I like to incorporate that and play around with the process. So that's why I say it's not a straight line. It's not very linear.
In this online class, we're going to have a go at some exercises in economic brushwork inspired by your work. Do you have any tips for our viewers for these challenges?
Use some large brushes. Try to avoid these little guys. I'm not even sure why I have that there. Yes, large brushes. And the other thing, I tell my students this, I think it's a good idea to, as an exercise, practice on some small canvases or panels, preferably something that is not too expensive or something that you don't care about. You maybe paint over something else so that you're not looking at it as being precious. And give yourself a time limit, maybe 45 minutes, and just try to tell yourself, or psychologically, you give yourself permission to just let loose with some large brushes and try to stop after a certain amount of time. Like that's what the time limit is for, so that you don't overwork. Because this is, I think, what I see not only in myself, but what I've seen in students teaching workshops. We start off with these great intentions, and everything's going very, everything looks great in the first 15 to 30 minutes. And then we start to overwork and to noodle around and to play around with the paint. And before you know it, you're overworking something, and everything that you had initially, or your initial intention of starting with something spontaneous, is all it's kind of all gone away. So that's why I say just start with some small things and give yourself a time limit, and try to, it's going to feel uncomfortable using a larger brush if you're accustomed to using smaller ones, but just try to let it go and get out of your own way, which I find is often a big hurdle. People have a lot of, especially people who are accustomed to, painting with in a tighter style with smaller brushes, it's very difficult to get away from that.
Yeah, it can be a big leap to do that.
It is. Yeah, and it didn't happen overnight for me. It can take some time.
David, I know you've got some fantastic video lessons. Where can people find them?
You can go to my website, davidshevlino.com. I have a number of instructional videos which are in digital form, so that you can just download them directly.
Also, if you're not already, go and follow David on Instagram and YouTube. And anywhere else, David?
Facebook. Well, yeah, that's pretty much you've.
I'll put the links in the description. You also do tutorials all over the world, and you're coming to the UK in October. Is that right?
I will be coming to teach an actual class in the flesh in October. So I'll be coming to Raw Umber Studios. I believe the dates for that
13th to the 16th.
sounds about right. So it's a 5-day class, and we're going to work from the figure and also still life. I will be teaching in London at London Fine Art Studios, which is in Battersea, which is that's a terrific venue. I taught there last year, and
Yeah,
that is later in October.
David, something we ask all our guests is, what is your favorite art book? Do you have any favorites?
Um, hmm. Well, I would say what comes to mind when you ask about art books is when I first began painting as a young teenager. This was long before the internet, so I had a lot of art books, and I love the old masters. So, and to this day, one of my favorite painters is Rembrandt. So I still have, I think, the first book about Rembrandt. I still have that book, and it's one of my favorites. Any books, picture books about specific artists that I really like. I guess that's what I would consider, my favorite art books.
Finally, is there anything else you'd like to say to our audience?
Well, if you can make it to one of the workshops or the demo, that'd be great. And if you want to embark on this journey from being a tight, very traditional painter to becoming more loose and economical, then just get those big brushes and let her rip. And
Brilliant.
yeah, nothing to fear, nothing to fear but fear itself.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for
You're
joining me.
welcome. And thank you for having me.
Wow, what an amazing artist, and David's such a nice guy as well. I just wanted to say, all the links for the classes are in the description. All the October classes, all of David's social. Go and check him out. He's incredible. We couldn't show some of David's figurative work, some of the work he's really known for, because of how YouTube censors content. But you definitely need to go and see that. Okay, so have a look at David's figurative work. It's absolutely beautiful. It's breathtaking. As you can see, all of his other work is too. So yeah, thank you so much, David. I really appreciate that. So I hope you're ready to paint. You're inspired, and we're going to be warmed up. So if you missed the beginning, I've just painted a canvas with just a board with orange for later on. But right now we're going to do some exercises with an egg. Okay, so I've got a big bit of paper. You could have 3 different small sheets of paper if you like, but I'm going to paint the egg 3 times here, and then we'll get to see the differences. So the first time 30 brush strokes, the second time 15, and then the third time 5 brush strokes. So let's get started. Let's get painting. So, turn my camera on. There we go. Hi everyone. Right, just make sure we're in focus. There we go. Nice bit of focus. So yeah, some nice big brushes. I'm just going to use 2 white and black for this exercise. Okay, so just you'll only need white and burnt umber or one color or black to do this. This first bit. Okay, plonk some black down. Let's not be shy about the paint. Plenty of paint on the palette. There we go. There we go, brilliant. Okay, I'm going to use, I'm going to start off with my 3/4 inch brush, and then perhaps as we get further down the exercise, I'll switch to the larger one. So here we go. First of all, we need to, as David said, we need to deconstruct forms to really understand them, so that we can then construct them and do so with, you know, really being mindful of the brush strokes and really understanding form. So let's have a look at types of shadow. Here's a bigger one. So let's have a look at types of shadow here. We've got our highlight where on the egg where the light's coming and hitting and reflecting off that surface. We've got that half tone, that kind of grey as the shadow is beginning to emerge. And then core shadow is like a band. Can you see that on the egg? That band wrapping around the form. And people call that a terminator, okay? Because that's the point at which no light can pass the object from the light source. So it's creating this really dark band. And that's our core shadow. And then reflected light there, we've got light reflecting up from the surface of the table, and that's filling in that lower part of the shadow. It's making it a little bit lighter, and that's a little bit of an illusion there. It's normally not as light as you imagine, as you think. So we'll keep that in mind. And then we've got our occlusion shadow where the object is hitting the surface, touching the surface, and light can't get in. And then the drop shadow or the cast shadow at the bottom. And one thing to note with this cast shadow is we've got cast shadows are generally sharper and crisper towards, you know, nearer the object, and they get a lot kind of blurrier. And you can see just there, you can see it's getting blurrier as it gets further away from the object. So they're really good things to keep in mind. That's our kind of types of shadow. And now let's understand the anatomy, let's understand the form of an egg. Well, it's not too complicated, eh? We've basically got a sphere with a little bit of it's not quite round, is it? Yeah, so no problem there. No problem. No need to learn anatomy for the egg. We're all ready to go. Right. So let's have a go. I'm gonna start this first one with 30 brush strokes. I'm not going to count along. I'm going to tell you when I get to each milestone. So each 10 sets of brush strokes. But for this first one, I'm not going to be too strict. Let's just paint this egg as kind of how we normally would, but let's be mindful and have some big brush strokes. Okay. So let's get started. Let's do this. So if I was normally, I've lost one of my brushes. Not to worry. So if I was painting kind of normally, I would start with kind of like a sketch of the egg, of the shadows and everything. So let's do that. Let's create a grey in the middle there. Maybe just a little bit on the darker side of grey. Okay, and let's just sketch out this form. Something like this. Nice round shape. It's getting larger at one end. And then we've got this core shadow. Hold on, let me get in focus. Is that a little bit more in focus? And then we've got this core shadow here and cast shadow underneath the form. Okay, so I've got everything drawn out. I'm not going to draw on that highlight because I don't want to kind of contaminate that bit of the surface. But I've got a sketch, okay? And I think later on, when we don't have so many brush strokes, we're not going to have the opportunity to do this. I've probably done nearly 8 or 10 brush strokes already. Right, I'm moving up size of the brush stroke with the brush. So give this a go. Let's start with that mid-tone, I think, of the egg. So I'm going to be mixing my paints in order, okay? So they're going to get darker this way and lighter this way, more or less. Okay, let's have a go at chucking on some mid-tone. Trying to remember how David was applying the paint with real kind of expression and in a real nice, strong way. Okay. Then perhaps let's put on that core shadow, that darker side. Make sure we've got plenty of paint. Something like this. Now, we've got a nice soft edge here. So, how can we achieve a soft edge? You can mix the color in between. Mix the value in between. Give that a go. Oh, didn't mix it fully. Maybe something like that. Now, let's do the light side of the egg. So as you can see, I'm not really counting, but we're going to try and, for the next one, we're going to try and count every single brush stroke. This is just the first little warm up. Okay, we've got this light side. Let's try and get some more of that blending. Okay, let's go. Make sure you're washing your brush when you're changing value. Let's go really dark for the shadow. I can afford to make a nice hard edge there, where the egg is touching the shadow. And just use this to kind of correct my drawing a little bit. Now, I'm going to put in a background to continue to kind of correct the drawing. Running out of paper. So that background's not as dark as the highlighted part of the egg, but it's still got some tone. So let's put another medium tone in. Let's mix lots of it up so that we don't run out. A bit lighter perhaps. Lighter still. Okay. It's going to be so tricky to do with only 20 brush strokes, isn't it? now I want to just make it obvious that there's a bit of a softer edge here. Going with some reflected light. And then let's finish with a highlight. So yeah, really, really tricky. And I think what I love about David's work is it really makes you kind of, it makes you think about what you're doing and really distill that down into as little brush strokes as possible. So yeah, I'm not quite happy with the strength of this. I think maybe too many strokes, you know. Let's see what we can do. Let's have another go now. 20 brush strokes. Or is it 15? Oh, it's 15. Oh dear. Right, I'm ready for a challenge. Let's do this. 15 brush strokes. How can we distill that down? All of that, all of them edges, everything. Just got some more paper. Okay, let's have a go. 15 brush strokes now, I'm going to count them. So I'm not going to be outlining the egg, I'm just going to go straight in with the brush. Okay. Right. One. Does that count as two? Maybe. Okay. 2 brush strokes. Let's go for that core shadow. I'll try and get that in. Now I'm going to teach you a little tip. I want to get that soft edge where the core shadow comes in. So what I'm going to do is preload the brush with the 2 colors. It's a really cool little tip. So you can preload, you see that, with 2 colors, and hopefully that will help soften. I didn't quite have enough of the black to get a proper stroke. There we go, that's nice and soft. Okay. What are we on now? 5 maybe? Let's bring in, let's go even lighter. That's about 8, I think. Just going to show you how bad I'm counting. Okay. Just going with the shadow. Yeah, it's 11. 11 brush strokes. Okay, pick out that highlight. 12. And now I need to kind of correct the shape of the egg. So it's darker. I think this is my last brush stroke. Cool. Oh, it's difficult. I really just want to go in again with the core shadow. Just go like that. Let's preload the brush, get it soft. Oh, should have left it. Should have left it, eh? Damn. Really difficult, really difficult. Let's have a look at the difference in them two. Okay. This is making a bit more sense, isn't it? This one, yeah, just didn't get that core shadow in there in time. I was trying to be clever and define the outline of the egg with just a few brush strokes. Now, five brush strokes. Let's give it a go. Okay. I'm going to use a new sheet. So let's break this down into 5. I'm going to get a bigger brush. Yeah, Laura says this is going to be a challenge. Whew. As if the other ones are. I think, look, we've got more types of shadow than we have brush strokes. So maybe let's take out the occlusion shadow and just use one brush stroke for each type of shadow. Let's try that. I'm going to start with the halftone. I think I needed to go a little bit lighter last time. Let's mix up over that. Okay, nice and big. It's still one brush. Okay. Core shadow. Make sure I've got enough on the brush. I want to get a dry stroke. Here we go. Okay then, let's lighten that a little bit for the reflected light. Oh, wish that was lighter. I'm going to cheat and make it lighter. Here we go. Now, let's go fully black for the cast shadow. Try and do that in one stroke. Oh, whoops. That's two, isn't it? Oh. So difficult. And then last one. Let's chuck a highlight on. Whew. Okay, super difficult, super difficult. Again, really need that. I've got a big piece of paper with like a silly little egg on it, but yeah, really need that softness, don't we, on the core shadow? Really need that softness. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you just another minute if you haven't finished that exercise. And then we're going to take a little break and we're going to get out we're going to do a full painting, a full study. Okay, so just going to show you my paints. As I said, I've got a dual primary palette, so nice and simple. Got a cadmium yellow and a lemon yellow. The blues, I've got cerulean hue and phthalo blue. And for reds, I've got cadmium red and a crimson. So you don't have to have them exact colors, absolutely fine. But yeah, make sure your canvas is dry. And when we get back, we're going to try and put this technique into action, okay, and try and have a little bit more time and a little bit more fun with it, okay. I'll see you in 5 minutes. techniques, leave it to us. There we go, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay. Cheers, Max. Max just made me a cup of tea. Yeah, I'll show you again. So here's my challenge. Little eggs. 30 nearabouts brushstrokes, 15 and 5. I hope you had fun doing that. And yeah, it was really cool to see how we can break down the forms and the shadows into maybe just one brushstroke, and work so economically with our paint. Instead of using a little brush, noodling around, going back, painting. No, be confident. You know what's there. You know what should be there. You could even accentuate these types of shadow, and just go in there with confidence. So yeah, I hope that was fun. We're going to jump now into a bigger painting, small canvas, but a longer painting. So I've got my toned canvas, a toned board, and I'm going to show you what we're painting. Another little still life, cool little setup. Avocado and the tomato. I haven't eaten it yet. It's in the fridge. It'll be my tea. Looking forward to that. But what I reckon we should do is, really attack this with that same kind of philosophy and that same inspiration from David's work. He always works with a coloured or some sort of ground or an old painting. So we've got that, and let's give it a go. All right, so I'm going to just put down my paints. So you're going to hear some nice sounds of paint coming out of tubes. Make sure you're using plenty of paint. Don't want to have a starved palette. Cool. Sorry about that, guys. I'm glad you can hear me now, and you got your tea as well. Brilliant. Oh, Kate's canvas still isn't dry. Oh no. Maybe quickly run upstairs, grab a hairdryer. We've still got a few minutes. Or if you're watching this recorded, you can always pause it. Right, got my brushes. I'm not going to use the small ones. I'm missing a bit of white as well. Need a bit of white. Bit of white. Okay. Here goes. So let's just think about what David said. Nothing to be afraid of. We're giving this a go for the first time, really, that after that exercise. So nothing to be afraid of. It does take a long time to master this. David's been painting in this style for a long time, mastering it and gaining that knowledge. But it's so fun to do. It's so fun to break things down into their most simple, basic aspects. So let's look at these objects before we paint them. Let's look at them and think, how can we break them down? Kate's got 2 fans on the paint. Brilliant. Hope it dries. So we've got the avocado. We've got that sphere in the middle of the avocado. That's going to be exactly the same as that that shadow, types of shadow image that we had, where we've got the coarse shadow, everything working on that. We've got a lovely cast shadow. Then quite a flat surface for the avocado there, and then it's again going into this rounded surface with another cast shadow. The knife, very different. We've got straight, you know, really quite angular. We're going to have to get some hard edges perhaps with our paint. Maybe we can play with some soft edges with the knife as well. It'd be interesting to see. Now the tomato, we've got again them clear shadows. We've got the highlight, the you know, the main kind of red. What's it called? I've forgotten what it was. The half tone, and then we've got that core shadow. It's a little bit distorted, that core shadow. It's quite far around on the tomato, and the reason that is because it's on a white plate, and it's all of the light is reflecting up off that white plate, so it's playing with our shadows a little bit. Then we've got that nice segment, so we can think of it as a curved surface, but I think I'm going to accentuate that darkness on this side of that tomato where it's cut. I'm going to make that a little bit darker. Yeah, I don't know really what to expect from this painting, but we've got half an hour. I think I'm going to be spending more time mixing and really thinking about the brush strokes, and really try and stick to not putting so many down. Okay, let's give it a go. Okay, I hope that canvas dries. Okay. Start with a nice big brush. So, actually, I'm gonna just quickly sketch in. The composition. Let's go, let's do it. Okay, all good, brilliant. All dry. So, just gonna quickly, do you remember when we did the still life week, we were cutting away from you can think of the canvas as a piece of marble, and you're cutting away from it. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to cut away these sides of the plates, seeing where they intersect with the edges of the canvas. Let's just get them shapes on there real quick. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this orange ground comes through in the painting. Okay, and then the avocado up here. We are against the clock. So try and hold your brush, try and use your brush with your whole arm, and don't try not to use it like a pencil and really kind of small time, but try and think of it as your arm, swimming. You've got that so much more movement. Okay, something like that. There's my competition. There we go. Right. Gonna upgrade my brush, bigger brush. Even bigger, I think. Even bigger. I'm going to go for the 1 inch. I don't like to use red straight out of the tube. I like to just put a little bit of something else in it. So I've mixed 2 reds together, put a little bit of yellow in it. So now it's my color. No one can take it away from me. We've got the ground to play with here as well. So I might take a few layers and quite thick paint. Sorry. Really trying to make every brush stroke count. Just putting in my shadows now. Everywhere there's dark, I'm going to put this little mix of crimson and ultramarine, just because it's making a real nice dark. Just start blocking in them shadows. Hey CD, how's it going? that brown on the avocado skin, where that's going into the light. Let's try and get that brown. Goes a bit redder. And a bit lighter perhaps, actually on the pip of the avocado. There's a lot of colour around that, so I think I'll come back to that. Plenty of time, we've got 20 minutes left. Plenty of time. Oh. Make sure I clean my brush before I mix a new colour. Being lazy there. So generally, if you want to create soft edges, you can use a dark colour over a wet light colour. And if you want to create hard edges, you can use a light colour over a dry, dark colour. Like that's kind of a good rule to stick by, but you could also, you know, drag the paint through another piece of paint. You know, if you're working in oils or something, acrylics are drying quite fast, so you're sort of not able to do that. But what you can do instead is, as I was saying, kind of load the brush where you have two colors on the brush. I might do that in a minute for this avocado. So I want kind of a bit of a different green for the outside here. And I'm kind of, you see that? Two colours in the brush. Oh, very difficult to tell what it's actually going to do. It's a neat little trick. So the other thing David was mentioning, oh look at that. The other thing David was mentioning was he likes to not just start with a goal and let that kind of, you know, dictate the whole painting. If there's something you quite like that's happened by mistake, keep that in. Like maybe make that part of the wider painting. So I'm gonna do a bit of, try and mix a bit of grey. This knife, it's kind of a green grey. I'm okay with that. And you can kind of, play with how you put the paint on your brush and try to load it in different ways so that the shape of the brush is actually becoming like a tool that's the right shape you need. Okay, so onto the plate now. I'm going to use a little bit of blue just to cool it a bit. I don't want to use just pure white. How can I do it in the most economical way possible? There's a little bit of red, a little bit of pink coming through here where it's reflecting off the tomatoes. So make sure I'm getting that reflected light. Coloured reflected light. And then go back to the blue. Really makes you aware of how your brush is carving into the objects and how painting is so much different to drawing, that you're not outlining things, but you're using the brush to define an edge. Oh, whoops. 10 minutes. I think I can put on the grey of the background. Kind of a mid-tone grey. So I'm mixing all my colours for grey. That's quite nice. Just using a slightly smaller brush now and making sure that I've defined the I've got to wash my brushes to mix that colour. Just making sure that I've defined the shape. So like I want to put a little bit more brown here. Going to come back in and do the green and the highlight on this and sort out the light on these tomatoes. Really trying to think of them shadow types again. Some people in the chat having trouble with this exercise. Well, you know, it's definitely tricky. I'm finding this very difficult. But I think even if you're just, the next time you're painting, you think about, oh, how can I do this in a simpler way? How can I break this down to its fundamentals? I think that's, mission accomplished. We're all going to have our kind of ways that we prefer to paint. And good to keep pushing, trying new things. Right. I want this dark side of this orange. It's not an orange. Dark side of the tomato. Let's mix up a nice dark red. Right. Look at that reflected light. Using the brush too small. Come on, Jake, come on. Four more minutes, got plenty to do. Plenty to do. Right, let's put in some green. So cool green for the shadows, and perhaps a little bit of a warmer green for the lighter parts. Maybe go even darker than that. There we go. Now let's go for that warm green with the highlights. 1 minute left. Let's get some highlights on. That's it, that's time. Maybe we can lighten this knife grey a little bit. Just need to repair that. That didn't go so quite so well. And then we'll be done. Okay, something like that. I haven't managed to soften these shadows. I think I'd like to do that, given a bit more time. But yeah, that was an awful lot of fun. Really tried to break it down and think of the forms. Yeah, let's take another look. How did you get on? Let me know. So yeah, core shadow here. Really enjoyed the avocado. I think that was my favorite bit. Oh, I've forgotten to add that little bit of the brown there, but maybe I'll add it in a bit, or I don't know. Maybe I quite like it. This where the canvas is coming through here, showing the orange. That's kind of suggesting a softer shadow, where it's a softer edge. So I quite like that. I would have liked that here and perhaps there as well. Maybe that's something that we can use in the future. Yeah, a lot of fun. Different way to paint, and you know, I think normally I'm thinking of the kind of the technicals. You know, dark first, then light, then you know, and I'm really thinking of that, and I'm not thinking so much the surface of the page. So this was a really good exercise, I think. Yeah, really good exercise to experiment with this different method and really think about painting in a different way. You know, paintings at the end of the day are just brush strokes on a surface. You know, we're not trying to make, well, it depends what you're going for, but we're not trying to make a copy of an image or something. We're trying to add something. We're trying to use this surface and this medium to our advantage. And I mean, David's work certainly does that, and we get this beautiful painterly things going on. Is it? Yeah. So what we're going to do is, if you guys want to be featured at the end of the stream, hashtag your work, Jake's Art Club. I'd love to see your studies and also your this piece as well. I really can't wait to see who's been painting along and giving it a go. And if you're joining in on the recorded lesson, please send it in as well to the community, because we love seeing people giving these challenges a go. Yeah, let's. I'll give you a chance to do that, and I'll show you some other bits. So I want to say a big shout out to our patrons. Massive thank you. I really appreciate your support for the channel. You know, as I say every week, you don't have to give your support, but the fact you do really helps us out, and it's amazing. So thank you, really. We've got some sketchbook tours coming your way, and also more reference images. Okay, I took a load of reference images today of the different still lives, so I'm going to be sending them to our patrons, so you can unlock that, and yeah, so you can keep having a go at this kind of experimental expressive method with some more still lives. We've got the challenge to look at this week as well, so let's jump right into that. The challenge this week was to paint something or draw something from a different angle than the one you were looking at it. Let me just load up the images. And I went to Corfe Castle down in Dorset. And where are they? Challenge submissions. There we go. So I went to Corfe Castle down in Dorset and had a great time there painting this castle, but from a different angle. And I think that really freed me up and really made me realize that I don't have to copy a reference, you know, word for word. You can use that imagination and use that world building skill to make things up. And I love seeing your stuff. So Hellstrike, well done. Love this. So this one, I think this was one of the this is the Still Life week. I think this is this isn't this week's challenge, but this is week 1, Jake's Art Club, when we went to we were doing a still life from life, and I really love this. Really nice, good effort, and oil pastels, very tricky to use, and you've got some nice textures in there. I particularly like the red parts on the end of the leaves of the succulent. They're really well done. Oh yes, fantastic. We've got submission by Kerry Doyland, and this really is cool. So imagine angle. So it's a pigeon's eye view underneath a bench in a lovely park. What an interesting angle. So I went up high, I went into the sky with my one, and this one's gone right down to the ground and given us a completely different view of this lovely park. Yeah, I mean, just I'm always blown away by Kerry's work, but this is really cool. I love the light, the red light reflecting on the bench there at the top of the composition, and the attention to detail on the legs of these benches. You know, I imagine Kerry was probably in the park sitting on the bench herself and really trying to work out how it would look from that angle. So yeah, top marks. Really cool. Thanks so much for joining in, Kerry. It's brilliant. I love the way you've left a little bit of light around that bench in the distance as well, just to really help describe its shape. Really clever, really cool. And oh yeah, so this is I guess this is an imagined angle, isn't it? So last week we were doing drawing from imagination, and I kind of jokingly said the next thing we're going to draw is a crab helicopter bike. And Dally Doodles went away and actually drew one, and I love it. And they've even put Teddy in the front there, driving this. I just think it's brilliant. One of the best things I've seen. I really love it. So yeah, well done, Dally Doodles. Really cool. It's so funny, so good. Oh, and yeah, Rose Henshaw sent this in on the I think this was the Animals Week, where we joined animals together. We combined animals. So make your own species. Look at this stilted peacock owl. Really cool. Really love it. Apologies that we didn't get to see your image that week. But yeah, I think it's awesome. I love that texture of the feathers, the peacock feathers. Really, really cool. It's believable, you know. I can imagine that strutting around the park, looking for crisps and things. It's great. Yeah, well done. And here we've got Hellstrike again, doing the drawing from a different angle challenge this time, and really cool. So yeah, it didn't have to be a scene, it could have been an object, and Hellstrike's drawn an oil burner from a different angle to the one that they can view it from, and I think this is awesome. You know, really well observed, and not observed but imagined, and lots of construction lines working out the different ellipses. You know, really, really cool that we've got a flat ellipse at the top and then a nice wide ellipse at the bottom. I just think it's really well drawn. Yeah, really, really cool with the perspective there. Well done. Brilliant. So Laura sent in some great little beach huts drawn from imagination, drawn from that different angle. And yeah, I love this perspective. Really good use of perspective. I know some of you find the perspective challenging, but this is really, really cool. Really, really, really nicely done. And I like how the pens have, you know, suggested that wood texture, little bits of white in between the planks of wood, the different colors. I love it. It's really cool. And there's the first one. So yeah, I think not so many challenge submissions this week, because I think I got the video out a little bit late because I was on that trip. But love your submissions as always. And if anyone wants to give that challenge a go, you're more than welcome at any time, and we'll hopefully get to see your work another week. So this week's challenge, here we go. Excited about this one. Paint a self-portrait using only 30 brushstrokes. So I want you to count the brushstrokes, use large brushes, practice this loose, expressive brushwork, and use a strong light source as well. And yeah, really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these. So self-portraits, only 30 brushstrokes. Maybe you can use some of David's tips and, you know, use a colored ground or the medium tone ground to give you that leg up. That's going to give you one tone already, and you won't have to use so many brushstrokes. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how we suggest the detail and the features of the face with just so little brushstrokes. It's going to be really quite abstracted, really fun. So yeah, I hope you give that a go. And you'll notice there's not a date on for the deadline, and I'll tell you why. So a little bit of a channel update. We are not doing a live stream next week, in 2 weeks' time. The reason is we've got loads and loads of video ideas and really, really exciting concepts that we want to try out. And yeah, we're kind of giving the live streams a little bit of a break. They will come back, but we're going to try out these different videos, these different draw along practice sessions, paint along practice sessions, interviews, you know, courses. Got so much coming your way. Even the challenges, we're still going to be doing the challenges, so you can join in. And what we're going to do is, instead of reviewing your work at the end of the Jake's Art Club Live, we're going to do some reaction videos to your work at the end of the month. Okay, so you've got until the end of the month for this one. 30 brushstrokes, self-portrait challenge. I can't wait to see what you do. Now, let's have a look at your work from this week. Hopefully, we've got a few images in the gallery. Let's have a look. This is my favorite part. Hold on. Is that? Oh, it's gone. There we go. Brilliant. Oh, wow. Art and afternoon tea. Giving this a go. Very tricky. It was extremely tricky, wasn't it? To get them subtleties with the brush. Really cool. Really nicely done. I really like the second one, 15 brushstroke. You know, that core shadow there, bring it in, and a little suggestion of the edge of the egg there. Really nicely done, and even using your brush to kind of against the dryness of the paper underneath to suggest a softer edge. It's really nice. I can definitely see that crisp cast shadow and then the soft one. This is great. I'm really glad you gave this a go. Oh wow! Oh, fantastic. Broad stroke exercise tonight. Art and afternoon tea. Well done so much. This is awesome. Really like it. Really got some blocky, strong brush strokes in there. This is fantastic. I love the orange coming through, and yeah, like really cool. I love that you've got a lot more sort of definition in the plate than I managed to capture, and that's really kind of set it off well. I'm really amazed by this. This is fantastic. Wow, yeah, lovely work. Absolutely beautiful. Guys, go into the hashtag now. Smash the likes on these pictures. They're beautiful. Janie B Art, egg with shadow stages 1, 2, and 3. Oh wow, I like this. So really, yeah, I can see you've really understood the shadow shapes, the different types of shadow. That reflected light's coming in there, not too bright as well. Love that. Really like this one on the right where you've got kind of like a swirling motion in the shadow to suggest that change in shadow there. I love that. I really do love that. Yeah, really good studies. I love it. Buddy Penn doing the studies too. Fantastic. Yeah, really cool. Breaking them shapes down. Really like it. Really like it. Nice directional brush strokes there. Really helping out with the shape. Janie B Arts. This is the next challenge, isn't it? The still life. This is wonderful. This has really come together. I really like that, and I particularly like the avocado, where you've got that texture of the brushstroke suggesting kind of that fleshy texture, and then highlights on that pip, that kind of what's it called in the middle of the avocado. You know, that's really describing the form well. The tomato's good too. I think the photo's just reflecting off in the shadow there, so we're not getting quite the effect that it probably looks like in real life. But I can see you've really got some good shadows. Beautiful piece, beautiful. Buddy Penn's piece, this is wonderful too. It's a really economic. Again, I love the avocado green. I love that strength of color coming against the red. This is really cool, and I can see you've broken that tomato down into the different shadows. Really cool. I didn't put them little nails or them little rivets on the knife. Maybe I should have done. It looks nice. And more art. Love it. Really good again. The tomato's really striking on this one. Really cool. And I love that you've kind of put a little bit more dark in them shadows and kind of accentuated that. And I just love that texture that you've got on the plate where the orange is showing through. You've got, you know, it's a painting. This is so much fun to look at and discover as you're going around this painting. It's got so much life to it. Whereas perhaps, you know, if we'd have gone in with a smaller brush, we wouldn't have had so much energy to it. So really well done. Love it. Oh, Laura's one, fantastic. Love this week. Fantastic interview with David Shevlino. I tell you what, he is fantastic, isn't he? Definitely go and follow him. Big thanks to David for the interview this week. I'm so pleased you're pleased with your result, Laura. I love it. I really like this thickness of the paint that you managed to get. You know, you've managed to get like where the yellow is kind of bubbling up, the white is bubbling up. It's quite interesting. I've never thought to incorporate that so much, and it works here. It's adding a texture. It's adding that next dimension, you know. And again, your avocado spot on with the lights and the shadows and the colors. The stone in the middle there, beautifully painted. Really thick, really luscious paint. This is amazing. Really cool. Really cool. Awesome. Oh, Two True Gallery. Wonderful. Absolutely love this. Is this the same one we had before? Because it looks very similar. I tell you what, it's fantastic though, isn't it? It's just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Really love this. You know, yeah. Just, it's got that abstractness that we were looking for. And I really, just take your eye to the tomato and look at that crisp edge on the left side of the tomato, bottom left side. That's beautiful. It's like a hard, straight edges, you know, angular, but it's describing that round form so well. And just little bits like that throughout the piece that really set this off. You know, fantastic. And not going too much with the white. You know, having a bit of dirt, having a bit of grey in there, bit of the orange coming through. Just fantastic. Oh wow, Kerry, this is brilliant. Wow, love this. Yeah, massive thanks to David again, and I'm so glad you enjoyed painting along. That avocado is just breathtaking. That has got that kind of beautiful ugly painting technique that I try and talk about, where you've described the form so well, but if you were to look at it up close, it wouldn't, you know, almost wouldn't make sense, because it's like, it looks like mess. It doesn't look like a drawing. But when you look at it from a distance, bam, it's beautiful. It pops, and it's just wonderful. So I don't actually mean ugly. I mean fantastic. That I just mean the abstracted approach. And love the knife. I love the way that's starting to get a little bit lighter as it goes into the distance. And just really, really confidently painted, you know. Really enjoy looking at it and seeing the different, like, look at that luscious white plate, the brush, the paint flowing through there. Still got the kind of marks from the brush. Just fantastic. Really nice. And that's our first one. So, wow. Amazing work. So happy you guys painted along. Just incredible. So I hope you'll stick with me. And yeah, and I'll see you soon. Make sure to subscribe, like the video if you haven't already. Liking really helps us out. So if you've enjoyed tonight's session, smash that like, and big thank you to David again. And I hope to see you soon. So thanks everyone, and good night.
That's right. It's time for a Jake's Hat Club. I hope you're ready. Tips and techniques every 2 weeks. 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 Tips and techniques every 2 weeks.
Thanks guys, see you soon.